In Toronto, it feels like you don't have to walk too far before you can pass a legal cannabis store within just a few blocks. Like I'm looking at my window right now here on Queen Street. There are dozens that you can see. It is this sort of density that has residents, politicians questioning how cities should deal with the future of pot shops. Joining me now is Daniel Safayeni, Vice President of Policy at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, where he also co-chairs the Ontario Cannabis Policy Council. Nice to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me on, Lindsey.
So let's talk about numbers. There are currently more than 300 authorized cannabis stores just in Toronto. To compare that, there are only 99 LCBO stores in Toronto. So why are there so many cannabis shops?
Look, Lindsey, it's a fair question, and thanks for having me on to discuss this issue. Look, it's important to remember that when Canada first legalized cannabis about 3 years ago, Ontario was really slow out the gate in granting store permits. So we had, if you'll recall, some 25 stores done via lottery for roughly the first year of legalization. Now we're at a pace where the government is granting over 100 of these licenses per month, with many more in the queue. And as a prospective store owner or applicant, you actually have no idea who's in front of you. So you don't know when you're applying for that store on Queen West necessarily that there's going to be two others on that same block. So the pace of the store authorizations here, coupled with a lack of disclosure and transparency in the application process, has manifested in a situation where we're seeing some concentration of stores along some areas like Queen Street West, which you mentioned just now.
And I want to talk about that concentration. So there's a private member's bill before the Ontario legislature that would give cities more power in determining where pot shops could open. How should this issue of clustering be considered?
Look, there's absolutely a role for municipalities to play here, but we do want to avoid taking a heavy-handed approach that could have potentially broader implications to what is ultimately a short-term issue here that will be dictated by market forces. And so we want to avoid a situation in Ontario where there's a different set of rules and policies for each of Ontario's 444 municipalities. That being said, we do need a way to bring these bigger jurisdictions that have opted out of legal cannabis retail market, such as Mississauga, on board. So we do need to have constructive dialogue there, but we do think that there are actually simpler, more straightforward solutions at the government's disposal along the lines of the disclosure processes I was talking about just a moment ago that could be more effective in addressing this issue.
Are other cities and provinces dealing with the same sort of issues?
So each province and territory has a slightly different setup when it comes to the cannabis retail market. So, for instance, it ranges from entirely government-run operations, like we see in Quebec and New Brunswick, to more privately run ones, like we have here in Ontario or in Alberta, or hybrid models, like we see in BC. It's worth mentioning here, Lindsey, actually New Brunswick, their finance minister introduced legislation last week that would allow for private retail presence within their otherwise government-run retail market because they were having such difficulty in thwarting the illegal market, which has such a strong presence right now. So they're actually bringing in more cannabis stores and more private retail presence to help address a different issue that they're experiencing.
Well, Daniel, fascinating conversation that certainly will continue. Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Of course, thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.